This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. Just a heads up, this is going to be one of those videos that might make some people's blood boil. Yeah, it's one of those. So GB News Today put out this article with the headline, Catherine and Prince William's charity receives backing from U.S. as Meghan and Harry undergoing reset. It says here, the Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales reportedly pulled in £8.7 million from its American office alone in 2025, representing 44% of its overall £19.6 million income for the year. By contrast, Prince Harry and Meghan's Archewell Philanthropies public charity recorded total revenues of just £1.93 million in 2024, a sharp fall from the £4.23 million raised the previous year. The Sussexes charitable arm, Archewell Philanthropies, is now undergoing a reset following staff redundancies made in December to streamline operations. Despite this, the couple have pledged to broaden their global philanthropic efforts. Now, that's not the so-called blood-boiling spot. It's this part that has me greatly annoyed. The Royal Foundation of the Prince and Princess of Wales accounts filed this week with the regulator show that the American Friends branch of the foundation, a separately controlled entity set up in 2011, contributed nearly £4 million more than the £4.9 million it provided in 2024, according to the Mail. William and Catherine's charity spent £16.5 million on its programs over the course of the year, retaining £10.6 million in reserves as of December 2025. The scale of U.S. generosity towards the Wales household underscores the couple's growing transatlantic appeal, with American donors now responsible for almost half of all income flowing into the foundation. Now, you might be saying, why are you annoyed with that? Sounds like a good thing, right? No, not for America. You see, none of that American generosity given to the American Friends of the Royal Foundation went to anything supporting helping the United States out. All of that wealth was transferred out of the United States and into programs and projects to benefit not only just the UK, but also this globalist agenda, supporting this climate hoax and Marxist agenda. You know, we always say that the royal family stays above politics and that they're not political. What people are failing to understand is that these NGOs and charities have now become the mechanism for these unelected bureaucrats to drive their agenda, whether it be in climate, whether it be in migration, whether it be in putting in a surveillance state and tracking people to make sure they don't become homeless. And what we're seeing is this kind of influence circumvents the democratic process in allowing the people to decide how they want to live their life. So you're probably wondering, who in America has been funding the American Friends of the Royal Foundation? Well, let's get into that. According to the most recent report, the biggest funder of the American Friends for the Royal Foundation was 1111 Foundation, giving almost $8 million. The year prior, they also gave a donation of almost $3 million to this foundation. Now, I've said this before, but the American Friends of the Royal Foundation is set up exactly like how the Archewell Philanthropies public charity is set up, receiving money from the same funding vehicles that allow for the laundering of American taxpayer dollars. The thing that's pissing me off about these so-called charities is that none of that money is being applied to helping the United States and being laundered and siphoned out of this country. So let's go ahead and take a look at William and Catherine's biggest donor, the 1111 Foundation. So according to the website, their purpose is that the 1111 Foundation collaborates with strategic partners to address some of the most pressing issues facing humanity, empowering communities through education, advancing health through research, championing justice, and driving action on climate change for a sustainable future. Not for nothing sounds like something you would hear on the Archewell Philanthropies Public Charities website. It's not shocking that you see globalist institutions being represented here, such as the Jane Goodall Institute, as well as the World Economic Forum sitting side by side Prince William's Earthshot. Now, while the 1111 Foundation is a private foundation, it does get grants from entities like Goldman Sachs, where in 2023 they were given a $40 million grant, which likely had money being washed from the government. And what is important to understand is that our tax dollars go through layers and layers of entities before it actually touches people like Harry and Meghan or Catherine and William. What irritates me about this is that they are taking America's wealth out of this country and using it to undermine Western civilization by pushing this globalist agenda. As much as we criticize Harry and Meghan, people need to understand that Catherine and William and the institution is really no different to how Harry and Meghan are set up when it comes to this charity grift. Yeah, we're all supposed to believe that the royals are not political, but nobody's looking at the people that they're taking money from. Let's go ahead and talk about the co-founders of the 1111 Foundation, specifically co-founder and CEO Wendy Abrams. Just keep in the back of your head that this woman's foundation, 1111 Foundation, is one of the Royal Foundation's biggest donors. So who exactly is Wendy Abrams? Well, Wendy Abrams is an American environmentalist, philanthropist, and major donor based in the Chicago area. She grew up in Highland Park, Illinois, and continues to live there with her husband, Jim Abrams. The couple have 4 children. She comes from a very wealthy family connected to Medline Industries, the largest medical supplies company co-founded by her father, John Mills, an uncle. She earned a bachelor's degree from Brown University and an MBA from Northwestern University. So who do we know that allegedly went to Northwestern? As well as who do we know that live or is from Chicago? Wait for it, it gets better. Abrams is best known for her climate and environmental activism. In 2006, she founded Cool Globes, a nonprofit that uses public art installations of globe sculptures to raise awareness about climate change. In 2019, she received the RFK Human Rights Ripple of Hope Award, just like Harry and Meghan. Can anybody take a guess as to what her political affiliation is? If you guessed Democratic Party, you would be correct. Abrams is a longtime major donor to Democratic candidates and committees. Documented contributions include significant support to who's the man out of Chicago? Barack Obama. She's also contributed to Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Northwestern alum Rahm Emanuel. But that's not the best part of it. In addition to giving to the DNC, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, and the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, she also served on the board of the Center for American Progress Action Fund, which is an advocacy lobbying arm of the progressive think tank Center for American Progress. Now, if you've been paying attention to the things that I've been telling you about the censorship complex, then you would remember that Simon Clark, who is a board member of the CCDH, was also a fellow for the Center for American Progress. But even more relevant is that the founder who created the Center for American Progress is John Podesta. You know, this John Podesta, who served as the White House Chief of Staff to Bill Clinton and then counselor to President Barack Obama. Then in 2016 was chairman of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, of which Sarah Latham had worked side by side with him. Anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but John Podesta and Wendy Abrams definitely knew each other. They had a close personal and professional relationship. Quite a few emails found in WikiLeaks between Wendy Abrams and John Podesta about making dinner. Now, if you know the story about John Podesta and Marina Abramovich and spirit cooking, then you'll understand why this raises a red flag. In another email dated September 10, 2015, from Wendy Abrams to John Podesta, she writes, "This may be a big ask, but given that No Tomorrow is going to be my CGI commitment, meaning Clinton Global Initiative, and I'm going to see President Clinton next week at an event in Chicago, could we ask for a 10-second shout out to millennials to speak about climate change? We need to know tomorrow in order to shape a better future." Just a thought, Wendy. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want any of these people shaping our future. Wendy Abrams hung around the same progressive circle that was responsible for the roots of this global censorship that we're experiencing right now. When 2020 came around and the left stole the election, Biden appointed John Podesta as senior advisor to the president for clean energy innovation and implementation, which then had John Podesta overseeing the implementation of another scam, which was the Inflation Reduction Act, to which a lot of the money was being given to fund radical activists on the left. Billions of taxpayer dollars were going into these groups that were fronting as fighting climate change, but really were radicalized and were going out and undermining this country with this color revolution that has been ongoing. So it goes back to this theme that I've talked about before of how the royals and also these globalists use charity as a front in order to push their political agenda. And the royal family is no different here. Now, when you look at the Royal Foundation, it's not like William and Catherine need to beg for money. What bothers me are the people that William and Catherine are taking money from here in the United States. We're talking about people who have been deliberately crushing Americans, especially when it comes to these climate policies, and profiting off the suffering. It's no wonder Wendy and her husband absolutely adore the Democrats. How do you think they made their money? From the time Obama was in office in 2008 to 2022, Medline had made over $1 billion in contracts from the U.S. government. And when COVID hit, they ended up becoming one of the exclusive providers of PPE gear. During COVID, this company was making money hand over fist. Then in 2021, Wendy's family sold a majority of the stake, roughly about 80%, to a private equity consortium led by Blackstone, Carlyle, and Hellman and Friedman. The deal valued Medline at approximately $30 to $34 billion, which generated very large liquidity for the entire family. The family retained a significant minority stake, and Medline later went public, IPO, in late of 2025, which further increased the value of the remaining holdings. Now that we know Fauci had lied about COVID as well as, the transmission of it, you look at all of these contracts that were cut during the pandemic from the taxpayer to enrich all of these globalists, you have to wonder, did all of them know? Were they all coordinating together? Because it sure feels like it. Yeah, with all the chaos, there was so much money going out the door that people weren't really doing any type of checks and balances. As an American, it's infuriating to know how much money had been siphoned for these man-made crises and these Marxist social issues that have been utterly destroying the West. And what's frustrating here is that all of these globalists target the youth. And what we see with all of these social justice organizations that prey on the vulnerable minority communities because they know that they are moldable and can be influenced, which is why we are seeing this indoctrination, especially if there's money and funding attached to it. The Diana Awards is a perfect example of how that organization has been captured by this Marxist ideology and infecting the youth. And here you have William and Harry leading the way with it. It's become a political action organization for the youth aligned with the UN SDG goals, as you can see here. These changemaker projects is Marxism in your face. Like one of the projects they have here, they aim to educate teachers about microaggressions, subtle, everyday racist remarks or actions that over time, evidence show, can have an impact on the mental health of people from radicalized communities. This is what Diana's legacy is now becoming. Now, I know you might be saying, oh, I'm hating on William and Catherine. No, I'm not hating on them. I'm just showing you the reality here. They're taking money from someone who is aligned and close to very corrupted people. People who have literally undermined this country and played a part in stealing our election. Now, it also makes you wonder, why is William hanging around somebody who's hanging around the same circle of Meghan Markle? And what's interesting is that we know that the royal family are very picky and choosy as to who they accept donations from. Some of you may recall, if you've been following me from the beginning on my first channel, we did a small little fundraiser to raise money for the new Princess Trust that opened in New York. Now, I recall we set up a giving page through the Princess Trust, and people from this community were donating. I remember I created a video in support of donating to the Princess Trust, explaining why we should be giving to this organization in support of the royal family. I went ahead and shared it with the guy that was so excited in the beginning that we were raising money, but somehow, for whatever reason, came back and told me I had to take the video down because there were so-called inaccuracies and wasn't allowed to use any of the logos, right? It made no sense, which the only conclusion that I could come to was that they looked at the rest of the channel, and because I criticized Harry and Meghan, that was a reason for why they didn't want to take our money. Hard, honest working people, we don't want your money. Bags of cash from Qatar, no problem. When you look at all of these charities and where the money is coming from, you have to ask the question, who are they really helping? Now, the last thing that I want to say is that I'm sure Catherine and William mean well in the causes that they support and the humanitarian work that they do. However, if the goal is to force everybody down this globalist path, why isn't the Royal Foundation taking some of this American money and applying it to solving homelessness here in the United States, or mental health, or this climate bullshit? But even more concerning is, why is it that the Americans who are giving this money not putting restrictions stating that the money has to go to improving the United States? Why are they allowing it to leave this country? I think we all know the answer, which makes this all so disappointing. Yeah, you're taking money from people who literally have destroyed this country, and God knows with whatever else. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts. I figured I would share this with you, make what you will of it. But for me, it's just more evidence that William is no different from Pa and these globalists. Now, allow me to leave you with this one last thought, and I ask you to really think about it. Had this situation been Harry and Meghan, where Harry and Meghan received this $7 million from this Wendy Abrams, would you think differently? I bet we all would. We would all see this as something's not right, something's up. Yeah, and where is that money going? I think we should be asking the same questions here. Just because the marketing and PR is better for William and Catherine doesn't mean that they shouldn't be scrutinized either. Anyway, those are just some of my thoughts that I would bring to you and share. Let me know what you think below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!
It was such a fraud.